Hey guys and gals, what is up? Welcome or indeed welcome back to yet another video. Today I got something really special for you. See this lovely iPhone XS Max in my hands? Yeah, it's looking a little rough. We're going to fix it up today in today's video. I've been meaning to do this for a long time. About 5 months, long time. As you can see, it's snowing outside. Snow is on the outside, and I recorded this video back in like July, August. So it's long overdue, but without further ado, we're going to jump right into today's video. Time to finally take a look at this poor phone. This poor guy actually looks worse than what it actually is, surprisingly enough. You can see the giant white stripe down the middle of the screen. You got some green lines, some crushed pixels up at the top. This thing is a gem. If we go ahead and turn the phone over to the side, you can see that the swollen battery has lifted the frame up. You can see the charging port is bent. Flipping it over to the back glass, of course, is completely destroyed. Don't mind my tape I put there to keep the glass from falling out. The camera lens is also cracked. Jumping into the settings, we can see that the battery is letting us know it's time to service it. No wonder. Heading back to General, and then finally back to About, we can see that this iPhone XS Max does indeed have Apple Care until October 4th, 2020. Not bad at all. If we head back into the regular General and About settings, we can see that this phone is the 256GB mid-tier model, and it has 242GB of usable space. We jump back up to the software, we can see that this phone is running iOS 13.5.1. Time to shut her down and get this repair underway. Oh, almost. There we go. First thing that we got to do is get an ingress point going. Luckily, the battery has graciously donated its life, so we can easily do that. We finally get our first look inside the phone here, once we finally get the screen disconnected. And we can go ahead and work to, the bracket is indeed off, because I took that off, I wanted to try a new screen. We can go ahead and get that battery out of here by flipping up that little connector there. And we're going to take a look at it, because like I said, it is swollen. You can see just how bad it is expanded, but luckily, thanks to Apple's dual-styled battery, you can see that the one half is not affected, while the other half is quite swollen. If you are on Reddit and you see r/spicypillows, you'll see that that is indeed some of the content that they love to post there, swollen batteries, and that is quite the spicy pillow. Going back to our phone, we can start to disconnect the screen ribbon cables and finally remove the screen. You can see here how I've already transferred the earpiece assembly to the new screen to test it beforehand. That was just a little safety feature that I did. You can see it's missing on the old screen and present on the new screen. That's also why Face ID didn't work. I wanted to quickly show you the back housing that I've gotten for this XS Max. The back housing is OEM used. You get that nice Apple stainless steel, the nice iPhone text, the nice Apple logo. No cheap quality, no cheap Chinese knockoffs with this housing. It's brand new, or it's not brand new, it's used, but it's OEM, and we don't have to worry about anything there. We can turn our attention back to the old housing and begin to disconnect the various ribbon cables connected to the motherboard, starting with the bottom flex assembly, wireless charging, power button, Face ID, and lower camera, upper camera, and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. We can now carefully work on removing that dastardly paired Face ID assembly. Remember, this is the one that is indeed paired with the phone. They are known to be extremely fragile, and if it breaks, well, your new one isn't going to function. You have to take it to Apple to get it fixed, so we have to be very careful with this little piece right here, not to damage it. Next to come out is the camera shield, where it's held in by 2 screws and a little notch. This little guy holds in the camera, and of course, too, once we get that off, we can set that off to the side, and finally pop out the camera. Look at that, easy as pie. Apple pie. Next, we have these 4 little screws holding in the motherboard, 3 Phillips head and 1 standoff, if I remember correctly. This is a voiceover I'm doing, so it might be not entirely accurate. This is not an instructional video, this is more of a fun little showcase, I guess you could call it. The SIM card tray has a little pin that needs to be pushed up, and make sure your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth ribbon cables are disconnected up top. Go ahead and, just like that, the motherboard can finally lift out of the phone. Taking a close look here, you can see just how small it is. Most notable here is Apple's dual-stacked motherboard design. Now, this motherboard is actually 2 halves on top of each other, stacked like a house. And if you didn't already know, this little golden Apple logo that I'll show you here in a minute tells you that this is indeed an Apple product. Of course, if you didn't already know that based on the motherboard design. We can go ahead and also set that off to the side. Now that we have everything out, we can finally turn our attention back to the old housing and start putting everything back together. there's our new housing, and we're going to be focusing that mostly here. So there is one thing that I did actually forget, and that is the Taptic engine. Now, this is not something that is mandatory. However, there have been issues before with Apple's Taptic engines not really pairing right with the phone when you switch them out and put in a different one. Of course, we're working with a new iPhone here, so that's why that is a thing. So we're going to go ahead and take these little screws out here, and we're going to go ahead and lift up on the ribbon cable there, and we can pop it out just like so. Now, there is something that I did mess up. That is the Taptic engine from the new housing, the replacement housing. This is not the original one. As you can see, I did actually manage to break it, so good job to me. And so we're going to turn back to the old housing and get the old Taptic engine out, and we're going to do this a little bit of a different way. The correct way, actually, by removing the Wi-Fi antenna down at the bottom here, which is taken out and screwed in by a whole bunch of tri-wing screws. And we're going to do this and make sure that we don't break the old one, because I don't feel like buying a whole new Taptic engine, and that was a huge oversight on my part. On previous model iPhones, it has been that the Taptic engine comes out much easier, and to do it on this one, you have to lift up on the speaker and finally can slide out, and just like that, you can see that I've gotten it out without breaking it. Good job, me! Alright, moving on, we can go ahead and clean it off now, and set that off to the side and put it back into the new frame where the old broken one was. Like I said, this is the original Taptic engine with the new frame. You can go ahead and install the Wi-Fi bottom. I don't even know what that's called, honestly. It is the Wi-Fi antenna, basically. It has a special name, but it handles the Wi-Fi for the phone. And also, I believe, the data signal. You can go ahead and screw the screws back in for the Taptic engine, make sure it's good and screwed in. And we can put that little plastic piece back in, finally screwing in the final bracket holding everything in place. We can go ahead and give everything a good clean here, and make sure that we remove any fingerprints. And I'm going to next clean out the camera lens so I can get any dust that may obscure the camera lens before we put the camera back in. Like that, we can go ahead and put that back in. It's one of those earlier pieces that doesn't necessarily need to have any order. It's just very easy to put back in now. We can go ahead and put our motherboard back in now. Believe it or not, we're already on that step. With like that, you can get the cables out of the way and get it all lined up. There's a little notch that you can do. We can put that little camera bracket back on that holds the camera into place, and the little grounding pins, like so. We can go ahead and get our screws here and put those back in as well, holding it in place. Make sure it's lined up if you just do decide to use this video as an instruction. You can go ahead and put those in, and now we can finally get our battery, which I have already pre-applied the battery pull tabs, and go ahead and line it back up. Now I am plugging it back in. That's okay. We're not disconnecting anything, but I can go ahead and press it down. We got our Face ID kind of coming up next that I can somewhat gently slide in. Now, I did mess up. I did manage to accidentally put the battery in first. The Face ID should have gone in first before the battery. That was another oversight on my part, but that was pretty easy. Just lift up on the battery and put the Face ID in. Not a big deal at all. I can go ahead and give the Face ID a good old clean, and I can hook up our screen so we can do the first final boot, which, luckily, it does appear to be working just fine. Once it finally boots up, we can test all of our functions. You can see Face ID is indeed sort of back. There's no warning message, which is good. We can jump into the settings and make sure all the touch is working. It appears to be fine, honestly. Jumping into our Spotify playlist here, we got the Kinks playing and testing the top earpiece speaker, which I've had problems before on the iPhone 8 with it not working, so I wanted to double check that, and it appears to be working. Jumping into the camera, we can see that that is also fully functional, as is the selfie camera, because I did transfer that, remember that. So, Face ID is also functional, like I said, which is good because it was connected to the new screen. Now, it is time to put the water seal on. As you can see, I'm pressing down and peeling off the protective plastic, like so. This part's really easy because that water seal is very important. I can go ahead and give everything a good clean before finally prepping to get the screen back on. You can go ahead and connect that up. And once that's on, we can finally put that bracket back on, which you guys didn't see before. I can go ahead and screw that back in and put the other lower bracket back on as well. And finally, one last test boot. You can verify that everything is indeed working again before I seal up the phone. And I'm pretty sure everything seems to be just fine. So, once we figured out that, we can go ahead and put it down on the table and give it one last clean and just press it down into place, like so. Once we're all good there, we can put those tiny little pentalobe screws back in the bottom as our final step. And ladies and gentlemen, that is one fully completed and restored iPhone XS Max. So here it is, the fully restored iPhone XS Max with 256 gigabytes of storage and factory unlocked. Now, as I did mention, both the front housing, the front screen, and the back housing are indeed OEM, which stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. In layman's terms, this means that both those are genuine Apple parts, which the reason I use those is to get a better resale value down the road. Speaking of resale value, let's talk budget. I spent $470 on this phone, the phone itself on eBay. I managed to spend $170 on the screen, which is actually a pretty good deal considering the good condition that it was in and it being an OEM screen. The back housing cost me about $100, which is a good deal once again because the back housing is in very good condition. And all around, this is a great phone that I'll be able to sell for about $800. I may have a friend interested in it, but it may end up on eBay as well. We'll have to see there. So, as always, that has been my first phone fix-up video. If you guys enjoyed, please consider checking out some of my other videos. If you have a critique, please leave it down below. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.